Have there been any trials to quantify the benefits of pharmacogenomic services?
There's been a number, in fact, quite a lot. They're building up as we speak. So there's been very good ones on antidepressants, which have shown it to be effective and cost effective in other countries. Similar warfarin and clopidogrel, there's been trials for both them and numerous trials. I've looked at all the evidence. So there is good evidence for, and it's kind of common sense. If 1 in 5 times you get the right drug for a patient more quickly than you would have done, and therefore they go back to the GP less frequently, then there's some savings to be had in addition with the cost of the test. But equally, the patient gets a much better experience as a result of that process. The test and trial and change approach to prescribing we have is reduced as a result of using PGX. So the evidence is there. I know we've just got a national study called the PREPARE study across the EU, including England, and I know some of the results are good, but they're only presented results which are kind of process measures, not clinical measures. And I believe they're probably holding back those results on the cost per quality, which is what we use to decide whether we can afford a service or not within the NHS. And the clinical benefits to the patient haven't yet been presented nationally, haven't been published in a paper. And I understand that because those things have to go into a journal, which doesn't want that data out in the public domain. So what's being presented are what's very encouraging and positive results from a well-conducted trial. So I think the evidence to support this is coming. They only did it, though, as single drug tests. So they did warfarin on its own, they did clopidogrel on their own, but and in different countries, they didn't do multi-testing, which is what we tend to do, so that you get the additional benefits of all the other drugs being checked at the same time. And we know there's evidence about 120 different drugs now for which we can do a PGX test commonly used, and 60 or 70 which we're very confident about those results. So, somebody who's on polypharmacy, there's probably 3 or 4 of their medicines the PGX would inform them about. Where the gap is, well, there's 2 gaps. There's one gap in polypharmacy and the effect of PGX in people on multiple medicines, which is one I'd like to fill. But secondly, is the one in, how do we incorporate it into services and make it part of the system rather than in a trial, which is very sterile and you've got motivated people. I want to actually put it into the real world. And that's what the MRC guidance is all about, and show the benefit in the real world with a proper system set up.
So if the PREPARE study has established that pharmacogenomic services work, why is your study needed?
Because the world is complex, because putting a test into the system is not that easy. And what they will have done in their trial, very clinically, they would have paid people well to engage. They would have paid them to do as many tests, and they will have incentives to do that. That's how you do trials in the same way drug trials are run. But actually, they're working with people who have signed up to do the test, signed up to the service, and do not represent how the system would operate in the real world. And the fact that it was probably doctors who did all the testing, it wasn't an integrated service. So what they've done is show the benefits if it's done beautifully and perfectly. My job as a health services researcher is then translate that into the real world and into real practice, and still show the benefits are maintained as a result.
And following on from that, how would a pharmacogenomic service be funded?
I would want to see it as part of the national contract. I think it's probably one of the most sensible things we could add into the national contract, because it really works across the different professions and really integrates us into the system. But for that to happen, we need that evidence. So that's why I want the trial. That's why I want to have some real guidance on how to train the pharmacists to do this, how to set the service up appropriately, how to build those relationships, and then run it out. So, the NHS says anything that has a cost per quality of less than £20,000, it can afford. Whether it wants to have it or not is a different matter. That's a political decision, but that's the measure we have to use. So we need to do this trial on a set group of patients, demonstrate the cost per quality, and then we go back via Community Pharmacy England, as it will be called in the near future, to say, here's your evidence, present this to the government, and hopefully we'll work with government on the trial anyway. That's kind of the plan. So this now needs to be part of the national system and national contract.
And to wrap this all up, what needs to happen next, and what does this mean for pharmacists?
I know there's colleagues who are thinking about doing pilots. They might be private services. So I think we should learn from those if we have them. They'll give us some information if it's just on the training parameters that we need in building those relationships. So I think and there are things going on. I know there's a GP-led service up in the Northwest where they're testing pharmacogenomics, but through GPs, the mention of pharmacists wasn't there in there. So again, I'm not totally convinced that's a roll-outable service as it is for all the reasons I said earlier. So I think anything goes on, we need to learn from. But my plan is obviously to put in a grant application to do the feasibility testing, because we've done the listening, we've looked at the literature, we're now ready to set up and run a small service and test it, and then run the big trial and get the evidence. And I don't think it should take that long, purely because we've done all the groundwork with Ezra Youssef and Tim Rendell, both doing all that work. We know kind of what the issues are and what we have to do. This is our role. This is how we put ourselves on the map. And this is how we show patients that we are the scientists on the high street, and we have that academic expertise to help get the most out of their medicines. I think they're the three main points I'd like to make.
Professor David Wright, thank you very much for sharing your insights and experience with us today. That really has been enormously interesting. For more information about Professor Wright's work, please follow the link in the description and be sure to sign up for more videos, news and journals. For updates straight to your inbox, please follow the link below. And thanks for watching.